So, you really think I'm a dragon? Talion said as he finished his bowl of soup. Very early. Much faster than either his mother or grandmother. Placing down the bowl with a big smile, seeming somewhat excited at the prospect of being a dragon. My mom's told me stories about dragons. She says that they're really strong. So, does that mean I'm really strong? Talion asked, still with a happy grin on his face. First and foremost, Talion, you're strong by nearly anyone's definition. There are very few beings that possess physical strength like yours, without being, well, immense in size. But as far as you being a dragon, that is my primary thought as to what you might be, but that's only because of your abilities. Your physical appearance denounces that. What? Talion said, looking confused. I'm not sure what denounces means. Well, Talion, it just means that it doesn't fit. You see, dragons usually appear as they do in the storybooks. Large, scaly creatures, even from the time they're infants. So the fact that you appear to be a normal child seems to contradict that idea. But all of your abilities contramand that, being next to identical to that of a dragon. And then there's your night vision. From all the stories that I've heard about dragons, even that they can see very well at night, they do not have the level of night sight that you do. Rather, dragons have an extra perceptual sense. They don't actually need to see. Their sense of taste, touch, smell is so highly developed that they don't actually need to see you to know exactly where you are. They can actually track you through the beat of your heart. No matter how well you hide, you can't hide from a dragon. But you, Talion, have night vision, the ability to see even in the deepest darkness, without any light, which is not a common dragon ability. And then there's your resistance to fire. Now, if you are a red dragon, this would make sense. They are, by their nature, immune to fire. They can roll around in a bed of lava without so much as getting singed. But they also have a very distinctive palate. Red dragons, or fire dragons, often have a red tone to everything, even when they do shapeshift, which many dragons do. They maintain their red aesthetic. So if you were a red dragon in human form, you would still have red hair, red eyes, but yours are blue, your hair silver. Once again, more contradictions. So, since there is so much contradictory information, the only way that this will truly be settled is if we know for absolute certain what you are. And to do that, we need a test. Okay, I think I get it. But I'm not sure how it's gonna help. I mean, even if you find out what I am, how is that supposed to help you teach me magic? Well, Talion, that's very simple, Vera replied. Once I actually know what you are, I can begin to take steps, try to find someone who might know a bit more about the topic. There are people who are basically experts on supernatural beings and otherworldly entities all over the world. I've made contacts with a few of them. Once we know what you are, it's simply a matter of contacting the right people. And perhaps then, they will know someone who can teach you magic. Okay, that sounds good, Talion replied joyfully. Mother, I'm not so certain about telling people about where we are, or Talion. I mean, it could be dangerous for him. What if one of these people wants to do him harm? Are you certain it's safe? Melody said, seeming somewhat concerned. Well, nothing's completely safe, Melody, Vera replied. But you shouldn't worry. After all, I've been doing this for some time, and I've gathered an assortment of reliable contacts, might you call them. In fact, I've developed quite the compendium of individuals. I even know a few monsters. To be precise, I know 3 werewolves, 6 vampires, 1 greater demon, 4 lesser demons, and an assortment of smaller, less well-known monstrous entities that simply deal in traffic to our world. I've found that dealing with beings that come from other worlds is, well, it's simply easier than dealing with people from here. Most human beings are either completely in the dark and ignorant, and thus react poorly to anything involving magic, or, well, they have a stick up their bottom, most believing that they're too superior to deal with you. I find it quite tedious. But I've found that supernatural entities are much more open to the concept of mutually beneficial arrangements. Even though I'm human, as long as I have the payment, it doesn't seem to matter to them at all. Don't get me wrong, most of them are shifty at best, but their products are reliable. So long as you're on your guard, it's very good business. That is, in fact, how I got the spell that I came here with. Now, I suppose that's enough of the explanations for the time being. It looks like Talion is done with his food, so I suppose I should start setting up our little test, she said, as she moved her bowl from the table, opening up a small satchel that she had on her side. She reached into it. However, she reached far deeper than the satchel itself would allow. It in fact appeared as if she sank her entire arm into it, reaching around in space that wasn't really there. Whoa, that is so cool, Talion said, staring at this in amazement. Oh, do you like it? Once again, it's another keepsake from a deal gone well. An enchantment that allows you to expand the space within a container to a much larger amount than actually exists within it. It's basically a tiny little pocket universe, all stuffed inside of a gunny sack. Pretty interesting, right? Vera said, smiling at Talion, still one arm completely gone inside of the small sack. Yeah, Talion replied, grinning. Okay, got it, Vera said, as she lifted her arm from the sack finally, pulling from it an assortment of small things. There was a piece of chalk, as well as some parchment, and a few small vials containing what looked like various types of dust, with slightly different colorations to them. After which, she began to draw a symbol on the table, and then she filled that symbol with the dust, drawing smaller patterns by laying out lines of it, and weaving it all together with the piece of parchment at the center. Okay, there we go, Vera said as she completed her small incantation or ritual. Now, all we need is a little drop of blood from you, she said, looking over to Talion. Blood? I mean, how much do you need? He said, beginning to look a little bit scarce. Oh, don't worry, Talion. It just requires a few drops, she said, pulling a needle, used from sewing, that she had in a small pouch on her side. All I need is the tip of your finger. It will only hurt for a second. Okay, Talion replied as he gave his hand, warily once again. closing his eyes and trying to look away for a moment, as Vera grasped his hand gently and placed the needle upon his finger. But as she began to press down with the needle, she began to have trouble. It seemed like regardless of how hard she tried to press, the needle itself didn't want to puncture his skin, eventually just snapping. "Is it over yet?" Talion said, still with his eyes closed, looking to the side. No, it appears we've hit a snag. The needle isn't strong enough to pierce your skin," Vera said, looking somewhat annoyed at the unpricked finger. Talion opened his eyes for a moment, looking at his hand. "Oh, so I guess it's like my nails. Mom's tried to cut them before, but it didn't work. I guess my skin is pretty strong too." "Yes, I would say so," Vera replied. I think I can do it," Talion said, pulling his hand back to him, sticking the tip of his finger in his mouth, and pressing it against one of his fangs. He pressed fairly hard and eventually punctured the skin. "Ow," he said, as he pulled his finger back, a small amount of blood beginning to pool on its surface. There we are," she said, grasping his hand and placing it over the piece of paper, giving the finger a little bit of a squeeze as a few drops of blood dripped off of it onto the paper. "There you are. That's all it took," he said, releasing his hand as Talion pulled it back and began sucking on his finger. "I really hope all magic doesn't hurt," he said. "Oh, don't worry. Most of it doesn't. At least not you," she said, smiling.